data system up and going. But for now, these samples are based on data that was collected prior to COVID. So we do expect to see some changes coming in future years. So big improvements from last year, we added a statewide profile. We found that people really wanted to see how their region compared to the states. And last year we just had each 7 region profile, and to get to the state, you had to go and add everything up. So here's the statewide one. We added a couple of new data features. So here's your population overview. That is pretty much consistent with last year. But down here at the bottom, we added this scatter plot that shows how Alabama compares to other states based on the college percentage of population with college degrees down here at the bottom axis. And then on the y-axis, you can see the median annual wage earnings. So Alabama is, among its peers. We did have some questions about southern states. Why is Maryland considered such? And that's a census designation. So take it for what it's worth. And here's the United States average. And let's see, so that's one page. We've got a couple more pages for the state profile. So the next page focuses on educational attainment. And that means what proportion of your population has graduate professional degrees, bachelor's, associate, some college, but hasn't finished high school and less than high school. And you can see how Alabama compares. We have got a greater number than the United States with high school diplomas only who didn't proceed on to post-secondary education. So that, helps us know that our Success Plus goals are important for us to move those numbers up. And then you can see a breakdown by male and female, and also the same data broken down by race, ethnicity for the whole state. I did want to emphasize just quickly that this year we decided to focus on the prime working age. So this is a category defined by the Bureau of Labor Statistics for folks who are between the ages of 25 and 54. So apologies to those of you who are over 54. You guys are very important to the workforce, and obviously we consider you prime, but that is a category that we are adopting from this other entity. For employment characteristics, we wanted to give a greater focus on labor force participation, which we know is really relevant to many of the conversations that we're having out of the Workforce Council, the regional workforce councils, the GOAT office, and the WIOA board. And again, here you can see a breakdown by gender and by race ethnicity. We did also break down the percentage of various educational attainment groups who are working full-time, 30 plus hours, and earning more than 35,000, which is kind of that self-sufficiency standard. And it's probably unsurprising that as you go down the lower levels of education, you have fewer people who are making that self-sufficiency standard. We also broke down by type of employment and then by occupation. And a new big addition this year that's attracted a lot of attention is the annual net migration. So this is a 1-year snapshot, and it shows kind of an average number over that period from 2014 to 2019 of individuals moving into the state and individuals moving out of the state. It is, good to see that we've got a net plus. But when you look at, who these individuals are, you can start to see how that might affect our business and industry. And we do a region-based one as well. So this is the last page of the statewide one. And then there are a 2-pager for each region. So region 2, and you can see the region reflected here at the top. So just to guide you through region 2, again, we're focused on our prime working age. Partly that's because our 16 to 24-year-olds are, going in and out of school. And so we wanted to kind of take that uncertainty so that we could see how the working age is looking. And you have the population number, how it divides out according to race, ethnicity. And then we've got our annual migration for your region. So individuals going out could be going to other states, but they could be going to other regions within the state. And again, our educational attainment levels. We did call out a few groups, including the 16 to 24s who are not in school and not employed. So those are what we might call opportunity youth. They're not reflected elsewhere because, again, we're focused on prime working age, but these are individuals who need policies and programs and supports to get them back engaged in the labor force. On the second page of each profile, you'll see a consistency across each region's profiles. We did do a greater breakout of the labor force participation, showing the percentage that are employed for male and female, and then also white, Black, and Latinx. Those are our three highest percentage populations within the state. And you can see the differences in employment. And obviously this is done by region. So the hope is that within your region, this can help to spur conversations or initiatives or help grant applications if you all are interested in doing those kind of things. And again, there's a scatter plot similar to the one we saw for the whole state, but this time it's for the regions within the state. And our region 2 has among the lowest percentage with college degrees, and again, among the lowest wages. They do also have a relatively small population compared to the rest of the regions in the state. A couple of factors impacting work and education. Last year's report included some data on COVID, and given inconsistencies in data, we decided to update this with more consistent data drawn from the same source, which is that community survey report. So I'll stop there, but there is plenty to see in these reports, and we are very interested in doing deeper dives if there are regions or individuals who want to know, well, what about this group? And can we get more on the counties or a specific area within our region? A lot of that data is available, and we are happy to work on it with you. So please do reach out by email. You can also respond to Jill, and she'll make sure that we get those too. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share these with everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. McGill. That's very, very important information. And as I told you before we started this morning, I was able to use some of that regional data at a meeting I spoke to last week, an educator workforce meeting. And the CTE directors there were very, very interested in the data. And of course, I didn't go into great detail. That was not the focus of my speech, but to all you regional workforce executive directors, please use this data. It's great data, and it certainly causes a lot of conversations to come forth. And with conversations, we're going to find some more solutions. So thank you again, Dr. McGill. We appreciate that. Next up, we have Commissioner Jane Elizabeth Burdishaw from Department of Rehabilitation Services. So Commissioner Burdishaw, the floor is yours. Did I lose any? Am I there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Trying to share my screen. Give me 1 second.
Oh,
The sound isn't coming through very well.
right. Chris, is there anything you can do about the sound?
Not on my end. I can replace it on the video when we edit it.
Okay. Commissioner, we're not hearing the sound from the video.
Well, I'll just jump in. Sorry you couldn't see the video. You can find it on the Audit website, which is the Department of Labor, and it's the ICANN PSA. There's several public service announcements that talk about employment of persons with disabilities. And I just want to talk for a few minutes about this particular special population, look at some data and how we might be able to engage this special population and get them into the workforce. So what you're looking at on your screen is the Bureau of Labor Statistics population survey. If you look at November 21, this is persons without disabilities. And if you look at that labor force participation rate nationally, it's about 76.7% for ages 16 through 64. And Robin, I think it gives the prime working age a little bit of leeway. I know you cut off at 54. My chart's got 64. And then 16 plus, it's got 67.2%. If you'll drop down to the unemployment rate, we're looking at 3.8% nationally, 3.7% for 16 plus. But I just want you to particularly look at that labor force participation rate for 16 through 64 and that unemployment rate at 76.7 and 3.8. And then I'm going to jump to the next screen. This is persons with a disability. And as you can see, only 37.7% of those individuals aged 16 through 64 are actually in that labor force participation. And if you drop down to the unemployment rate, it is 8.1%. So as you can see, we've got a lot of work to do around how we engage this special population. Well, let's look at the numbers in Alabama. We have approximately 1.3 million adults in Alabama that have a disability. That's 33%, or 1 in 3 adults in Alabama. And so we know we've got jobs to fill. How do we gain access to this population and give them the skills and education that they need? Well, part of the way we do that is through our work here at the Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services. And we serve individuals with disabilities across the lifespan, but I particularly want to talk to you about these groups over to the what would be the right of your screen. That's our vocational rehabilitation program and our independent living programs. Our vocational rehabilitation service program is an eligibility-based program. And so if we find that a person has a disability that impedes their ability to gain employment, then we can reach out to them and provide an array of services. We do that with about 80% federal funds and 20% state funds. We do it through assessments, counseling and guidance, disability-specific services, educational and skills training, job development and placement, return to work, stay at work, and self-employment. But I want to jump right here to these 2 bullets, disability-specific services. Many of our workforce programs are equipped to provide jobs and skills training, but don't always know how to make those trainings accessible. And so we've got to work with our workforce partners to help create accessibility for individuals with disabilities. We've had some wonderful headway in this area around apprenticeships, which I'll talk about in a minute, and also with Ed Castile and AIDT in our deaf and blind population. Educational and skills training, I want to stop there for a moment as well. We provide pre-employment transition services in every high school in the state. We have individualized plans with those special education teachers to determine how we might meet the needs of those students who have an IEP, an individualized education plan, or a 504 plan. We also have partnerships with every community college and college within the state. We have students with disabilities who we are sponsoring across the spectrum. Some of our folks may not be able to attend college or graduate school, but they will be able to participate in some of our workforce skills programs. And then we have other individuals that we serve who may go on to not only graduate school, but even doctorate level work. And so we want to try and meet each of those individuals' need through what we call an individualized plan for employment. Here are some of our specialized trainings, as we talked about earlier: apprenticeship programs, project search. The picture you'll see, these are students who have intellectual disabilities or developmental delays. They may have difficulty in high school as they try and matriculate on into life as they exit high school. And so what we do is we keep them in high school a 5th year. And we do actual job exploration training where they go to hospital settings. And now we have them in the hospitality industry and manufacturing, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And they actually, for that entire year, learn work-based learning skills in order to go and hopefully become competitively employed in the future. We also use other work-based learning programs and work with employers to do things like paid work experience or on-the-job training, where we will actually reimburse an employer for wages. We also provide smart work ethics, which many of you have heard about that program before. We also provide other specialized services for individuals with disabilities around business relations. We have business relations contacts who go into individual employers and help them determine what is needed for their workforce. We have rehabilitation engineering and assistive technology. You'll see over here to the right in the pictures, this gentleman, for instance, is a farmer and needed some accessibility in his tractor, and you'll see that we outfitted that for adaptive driving so that he continue his work in the farming industry. We have orientation and mobility specialists. That's individuals who have a specialty in learning how to helping blind people learn how to migrate from point A to point B in their community. We have adaptive driver training. We have sign language interpreting. We have deaf support specialists. Those are individuals who are deaf helping other individuals who are deaf as they go into the workforce. We have vocational evaluation. Many people with disabilities can't envision what jobs are there for them to enter into. And so our job is to try and help them figure out what jobs are available and what they might be able to accomplish, whether it be through skills training or education. We also have a specialized traumatic brain injury program that gets every referral that enters a hospital with a traumatic brain injury. That registry comes to our department, and we then work on pre-vocational skills and then return to work. This is a snapshot of our current workforce here at the department. About 64% of the individuals we're serving currently are 16 to 24 years of age, and that's because we're trying to get to individuals with disabilities earlier and earlier so that we can help them prepare for the workforce. 36% of the individuals we serve are 25 and older. About 14% are individuals with physical disabilities. We have 68% who are neurodiverse. We also have individuals who have sensory impairments. That would be deafness, blindness, hard of hearing, low vision, or deaf and blind. Top career interest. When I talked earlier about an individualized plan for employment, we meet with an individual and we come up with a vocational goal. And our entire work is to help an individual get from where they are now to that vocational goal, hopefully in the demand jobs that are in their local workforce region. And you can see those, I won't read those to you. Despite the pandemic this year, we were able to place 4,033 individuals with the most significant disabilities into competitive integrated employment outcomes. And what does that mean? That means that they were able to gain competitive wages, meaning that they receive the same amount of wage that someone similarly situated without a disability would receive. And it was also in integrated settings, meaning that it was with non-disabled peers in the community. So we're excited about that number. But if you remember the earlier number of 1.3 million Alabamians with disabilities, we've got a lot more work to do. Here's some of our recent success stories, and I just want to point out that these are all across the spectrum with skills training and education. Patrick Kimball, who you see here, just was recently hired at the University of Alabama. We actually sponsored him in education and training. This young man, Seth, is now working at Zaxby's. Seth has an intellectual disability. We work with him in our pre-employment transition services. Mr. Gamble, this is an interesting partnership we had with the Wallace campus in Hanceville, where we provided CDL training and outfitted 18-wheelers for individuals with physical disabilities. So it was a wonderful partnership, and we're excited that Mr. Gamble's now working. And then down here in the bottom right, you'll see Ms. Stallworth. She's at the largest fire extinguisher manufacturing plant in Alabama, where she works in manufacturing. These numbers in orange are the Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services vocational program numbers in comparison to indicators in other vocational rehabilitation programs across the country. As you'll see, when you look at Q2, after someone exits our program, we had a higher number than the national average of those individuals who maintained employment. That's important for individuals with disabilities because gaining employment is not always the most difficult thing. It is how do we maintain that employment. In Q4 after exit, you can see that we even were higher above the national average. So we're excited about that. Credential rate, you can see here, both numbers are low. We want to get better, but we are still above the national average. And when you talk about Success Plus, you want to look at this particular indicator here. And then when we look at measurable skills gains, we were slightly below the national average. I'm proud to tell you that in the first quarter of this program year, we have now exceeded the national average. On the horizon, I talked about Project Search. We will be soon, once the final approvals come through, we will be the first of 3 states who will be entering into Project Search with Amazon in their distribution center here in Alabama. So we're very excited about that partnership and teaching young people work skills early. We're working with Josh Laney in the Alabama Office of Apprenticeship and how we make apprenticeships more accessible to individuals with disabilities. And another very exciting partnership is with the Alabama Department of Mental Health and Commissioner Boswell as we work with the new Medicaid waiver program and how we get individuals who have been in separated, segregated situations back into the community and into the workforce. We're doing a pilot right now with 500 individuals who are interested in work, and we're working with those individuals and their families on skills and education training. As always, if you need to reach out to us, this is our website, rehab.alabama.org, or you can reach us at the 800 number. If you are business and industry, or you're another state agency who wants to learn how to create accessible programs, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I'll turn it back over to you, Chairman McCartney.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us this morning, Commissioner. We really appreciate you for your leadership and dedication to serving Alabamians that need support to lead a self-sufficient life. I look forward to building our partnership between the AWC and the ADRS in the coming year. And for all of those out there listening today, we need to take advantage of this great leadership from Commissioner Bergeron and her staff on doing this. There's a huge pool of potential employment out there, employees, so we need to take advantage of it. Obviously, we have not taken full advantage of it, so let's work to do that. So thank you again, Commissioner. Nick Moore will bring us up next to our monthly workforce update. So Nick, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Keep it pretty brief today in advance of the holiday. So our unemployment rate for November 2021 is held steady at 3.1%. glad to see that the labor force participation rate ticked up 1/10 of a percentage point. If we take a look around at the unemployment rate, the only state that is doing better than we are right now is Florida, or Georgia rather. And if we take a look at the labor force participation rate, we are kind of in the middle of the pack there, but not Mississippi is significantly lower than where we are, but we can do a lot better on the labor force participation rate. And that's something that you'll continue to hear me talk a lot about. The governor's going to be talking a lot about that, and the entire administration, because like was said by a lot of the folks here on this call, and then at the combined workforce meeting on December 1st, when we're in a period of near full employment, we've got to be talking about the labor force participation rate, and more than just talking about it, we've got to get down to the reasons why people are not able to connect. The benefits cliffs, the lack of transportation, childcare, barriers to post-secondary learning, and then getting down. And that's why those regional profiles that Dr. McGill showed are so powerful, and the work that Commissioner Burdishaw is doing is so powerful, because those are the kind of things that help us do more than just talk about things up in the air. As we're getting down into communities and counties, identifying people that have barriers and figuring out how to fill those. And it's not just a state agency, but it's our private sector partners, community organizations. So you'll see us doing a lot more about connecting our state agencies to people in the communities that are doing work, but sometimes just goes unnoticed by people in Montgomery, not due to a lack of care, but just because there's so many people out there all over the state that sometimes that gets lost in translation. So our We Can initiative is going to be about a community audit of every particular possible array of assets. And what is an asset is anything that could potentially help somebody. So we're going to make sure that folks in Commissioner Burdishaw's shop, DHR, across the spectrum, have this comprehensive source of every asset in every one of our regions, so that if there's resources that can't be paid for out of the federal funds or state funds that we have on the table, then the private sector and community-based organizations can step up. Now, this is a graph I like to see. Maybe we can put some snow on there and a sled or something. We can slide down this hill here. So taking a look from the height of the pandemic, went back around where we were. This isn't as high as it was, but I'm just kind of looking at where we were a year ago. So this is 1 year, and we've just fallen precipitously. Now we've been holding steady at this 3.2, 3.1% for the last several months, but that's a good way to end the year. And we've been talking for 6 months that the Delta and Omicron would cause it to peak back up, and I'm knocking on some wood that's really old. It's been down here a long time, hoping that we'll stay at that level. Labor force participation continues to fluctuate. There's a lot of churn, and in this environment where we've got a lot of disruption in the labor market, we've got a lot of people popping in and out of employment, popping in and out of the labor force generally. And so I hope that this will stabilize, but we've still got a lot more work until we see the upward trajectory like we saw in the governor's first 2.5 years in office. And some of these are just forces outside of one state's control. You know, this is more of a macro economic issue going on here, but we can't discount the efforts that we're taking to also directly affect it. I like this opportunity insights tracker, and I've shown this to you several times in the past. I think it's interesting to see that there's a 96% increase in job postings from now, or between now and when the pandemic began in January of 2020. And that's important because this goes hand in hand with the information that Secretary of Labor, Secretary Washington put out, saying that there's way more than one open job available for every Alabamian that is unemployed. And that means there's a lot of jobs available for Alabamians that aren't in the labor force either. And so we've got to make sure that we're filling these open jobs. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman. Happy
All right.
holidays. Merry Christmas.
All right, thank you, Nick. Thanks for the update. Very enlightening. It's good to see that the unemployment rate has held steady and our labor force participation rate has ticked up a little bit. It's not a bad way to close out the year, but it also gives us some work to do in the forthcoming year. We've got a lot of room to improve. Before we close, I just want to thank all of our speakers from today, Representative Collins, Jill Corbin, Dr. McGill, and Commissioner Jane Elizabeth Burdershaw. And as always, Nick, appreciate all the efforts you put into this. I know it's a very, very busy week for all of us. And sometimes it can be stressful this time of year. So everybody take care of yourself. Have a great holiday. Merry Christmas. And tune in on January 24th of next year, 2022, for our next webinar. Until then, Merry Christmas.